and ask you what your interests are, who you be with, things that make you smile, what numbers to dial. You gonna be here for a while? I'm gonna call my crew. You gonna call your crew. We can rendezvous at the bar around. Let's go. Welcome back to House Rich, the real estate show. We help millennials figure out where do I start when it comes to real estate and how to build generational wealth. Today's topic is 8 questions you should ask your realtor when interviewing them. Because yes, you should be interviewing your realtor. Today's intro was sponsored by Brooklyn philosopher Christopher George Latour Wallace. Let's get into it. But hey, do I really need to interview a realtor? My friend Chris recommended me someone that they really like a whole bunch. Shouldn't that person work for me? I don't know. They may or may not. So think about this. I'm sure we all have a friend where they have or had a girlfriend or spouse that for whatever reason you just didn't vibe with, but that person liked them a whole lot, which was great because whatever characteristic or personal traits that they had between each other, they seemed to match. So that was great for them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're great for you, right? So same thing with a realtor. So they may, for whatever reason, vibe with that realtor for various reasons, and various questions we'll go through during this episode. But for that, the answers to those questions may be different for you, or they may apply differently to you. And so it may not be a match. So that's why you should always interview your realtor, even if they were recommended by your bestest bud. And so number one question, or the first question you should always ask your realtor is just some version of tell me about yourself. And so tell me about yourself, something that has nothing to do with real estate, not how many homes you sold or, price per square foot you can get or time with the market. No, just tell me something about yourself. So you're gonna make sure that you vibe with that person because over the next, hopefully quickly, but potentially over the next 2-3 months when you're searching for a home, you're going to be in houses with that person, maybe in a car with that person, spending hours on the weekend with that person, texting them, hopefully not too late, but texting them after your working hours for updates. And so you need to make sure that you vibe with that person. You two are like on the same kind of wavelength because that's honestly probably the most important thing when dealing with the realtor. So that's the first question you should always ask your realtors, that tell me about yourself. I say number two is, are you full-time or part-time, right? So being full-time or part-time is, there's not so all these questions I'm about to say, there's not a right or wrong answer to any of those, but you need to make sure they fit your needs. So the full-time or part-time thing is a very important question because the vast majority of realtors are part-time. Like I think like 80% of realtors are part-time, like they have another 9 to 5. And so maybe you have a kind of different type of schedule where you have a 9 to 5, but not during the 9 to 5 hours, right? So you need someone that's available during the off hours, or maybe you need someone that's available, during the middle of the week because you work the weekends or you work the night shift. You need someone available during the day. So you need to know like what their schedule is, because if they got to be at Target during between 9 to 5, that doesn't work for your showing schedule and looking at homes. And so let's say they are part-time, right? So even if they are full-time, you should ask them this question, like, are you part of a team? Hopefully they are, because even if your realtor is full-time, they're obviously working with other clients, right? And so if they're out serving another client, but you need to go look at a home, there should be somebody on their team that can show you that home that they know and trust. So make sure you ask them, are they full-time, part-time, and then are they part of a team as well? Next question is just like, hey, how long have you been in the business? I think that's an important question too, because it gives you an idea of their level of experience, especially if they're full-time and they've been in the industry for a bit. That means they're probably doing pretty well. Honestly, probably in the top 10% of realtors. If you're full-time and been in the business for more than 2 years, you're like in the top 10% of realtors, because despite what you may see on Instagram or whatever, it's hard to sell homes. There's like, just like any industry, there's like 10% of people doing 90% of the business. So ask them how long they've been in the business. And then another question equally as important is, we're on number 3 now actually, is how many units do you move? So if you've been in the business for 5 years, but you're selling like 1 home a year, that's not indicative of an actual full-time person. Maybe they have a rich husband or wife that is actually funding the family. But if you're moving like 1 unit a year, you're full-time, but you're actually like doing part-time production. So hey, ask them about their production as well, because that's important to see if they're moving units, especially if you're looking to sell your home and someone's never sold a home before. You may want to make sure they have somebody that can at least guide them through the process. And if they've never helped anyone buy a home as well, kind of the same thing. And like I said, if they've never sold a home, that's not a bad question either. Everyone starts at zero. Even the guys you see on TV, $1 million listings, like they all started at zero. And so someone being super new may mean they're very ambitious, and that hey, you're their pet project, for lack of a better term. And their goal is to help you. They're super hungry, ambitious, and their goal is to help you get in that first home so they can start building their portfolio. They can serve you well, so you refer them out to other friends. So once again, there's not a good or it's not a right or wrong answer to any of those questions. And another important question is, hey, do you typically work with buyers or sellers? It's just a little bit different when you work with a seller than a buyer. Your goal as a seller is to have folks come to you. When you're a buyer, you're like kind of like tracking folks down. So it's like the hunter versus the prey situation. Another important question to ask is, what areas do you specialize in? Not the people on your team, not your brokerage, but do you specifically specialize in? So I'm in Dallas. I'm gonna use Dallas as an example, but you can kind of think about how things work in your city as well. So most realtors would say, hey, I cover the whole market, the whole DFW market. There's a difference between Dallas and then there's Fort Worth, which is 40 minutes away, but it's a whole different thing. There's areas that are in the suburbs of Dallas, north and south. And so you need to make sure that they specialize in a specific area that you're looking in, because think about where you live. There could be areas that are like 5 minutes away, but are totally different, right? And so you got to know the characteristics of those neighborhoods. And more importantly, as I kind of pointed out before, when working with like a buyer's agent, if you're specialized in a certain area, you probably know realtors in that certain area and have a good reputation in that area as well, which helps with a couple things. One, maybe if it's two offers that are equal, or maybe yours is 99% as good as the other offer, maybe the reputation of your realtor will put your loan offer over the top because your realtor has a good reputation with the agents in that area. Or even better, they may be able to find like off-market deals that are, off-market deals are deals that haven't been listed, or pocket listings is the term there, to help you, find stuff before it hits the market, so you're not competing with 5-10 offers. And so that's a super important aspect of making sure that they specialize in the area that you're looking at, not just the whole market, because they'll say the whole market. No realtor's going to be like, or honestly, some realtors that are super specialized and super efficient will say, hey, I just work this particular area of Dallas, and they may put you off to one of their teammates, which is their prerogative as well. Another important question to ask is, what price range do you work in? So like if your price range is 250 to 300,000 and you're working with a great realtor that typically maneuvers in like the 750,000 plus threshold, they may not be a good fit for you, because they're going to pay a lot more attention to that client that's purchasing a home in the 700,000s, or they may, than you, because they're going to get literally 3 times the commission of selling a $750,000 home than they would a $250,000 home. That just is what it is. Realtors get paid commission based off a percentage of the sale. And so, like I said, once again, kind of the same situation. They may kind of like oversee the project, but they may put you off to, one of their, I don't mean lower level realtors, but a realtor that works in like a lower level price bracket as well. And equally as important is, let's say you're looking in the 750s, but you're dealing with a realtor that typically works in like the 300,000s. They may have a little bit more trouble in that threshold than maybe a realtor that typically maneuvers in that threshold. Because once again, it's relationships with the agents. It's a little bit different negotiation. You're dealing with different loan types, etc., when you're going up in that threshold. And once again, everybody has to start somewhere. So once again, I'm not saying don't ever maneuver with anybody just because they never worked in that price range, but just some thought on your end to make sure that still vibes with you, because it's cool having somebody come up. But once again, this is the most important financial decision, or the biggest financial decision of your life. So you want to make sure that you're in good hands with somebody and they know what they're doing. And so, like I said, if they only maneuver in the I say only in the 250s, maybe they have somebody on their team that can kind of help them, when they're working kind of that higher bracket of homes as well. Once again, which is why it's important to ask if they're part of a team. All right, so last question. Every realtor is going to refer you to their preferred lender. The question you need to ask that realtor is there some sort of marketing services agreement in place or any type of financial reciprocation between the two parties? It's an awkward question to ask, but you want to ask that because a marketing service agreement is basically like a pay to play situation. It's framed as like a lender paying for marketing for the realtor. It's just basically a legal way for a lender to pay a realtor for business. That's just it. That is what it is. And so the reason for that is important because you may be in a situation where you're wondering, like, hey, why is this realtor pushing this lender a little bit too hard? Like, I want to work with nothing wrong. I want to work with my local bank, or I want to work with this realtor, or not this realtor, or this lender. But this realtor is like being extremely pushy because honestly, it shouldn't matter. Your realtor should want to build relationships with different lenders, so they shouldn't have that much of a vested interest in who you pick as a lender. As long as they talk to the lender and everything's all good and they can say the pre-approval is good to go, honestly, it should be fine, especially if you're working with a good realtor, because that realtor reputation should ring more bells than just some random lender listed on a piece of paper. Except if they're trying to be some sort of quota, right? That is part of this marketing services agreement. And so that's a super important question to ask. It is awkward to ask, but go ahead and ask it and see what happens. And just kind of casually ask, like, hey, my friend told me something about like a marketing service agreement. Like what is that? Can you explain that to me? Do you know what that is? Do you have any of those with your preferred lenders? And so there we go. Those are the questions you should be asking your realtor. Once again, if you made it this far, appreciate you rocking with me. Give it a like, share with a friend, leave a review on the podcast. The more interaction you have with us through the algorithm, the more good folks like yourself get to hear this information as well for free, like you're listening to it. So that's it. See you next week. Buy land. Rumor has it they're not making any more of it.